Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is now just 19 days away from its official release by Disney, Lucasfilm, J.J. Abrams, and crew that is all set and ready to end the sequel trilogy and the Skywalker saga itself. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, one thing about Episode 9 that a lot of fans are very curious and worried about as well, and excited about this movie, has all to do with exactly how JJ is going to connect this movie to the prequels and the originals in multiple different ways than what the fans would have ever expected to see in a Star Wars film. Now, one thing is for certain is that Disney and Lucasfilm went through major adjustments back in August, September, and October, where once they actually did that, it basically changed the entire tone of the film, it changed the structure of the second and the third acts of the movie, and it really does remind me of, what happened with Solo: A Star Wars Story almost, where they had to essentially reshoot 80% of the film. Now, granted, it wasn't that severe. It wasn't to that extent at all in any way, shape, or form, but it just reminds me of that, of how they kind of went back and changed a lot of scenes and really switched things around. And even October and November of this year, they made many different changes as well last minute with George Lucas on board. Now, on top of all of this, one thing that's rather unfortunate has all to do with actor Hayden Christensen and his portrayal as Anakin Skywalker. Now, specifically, it's explained that through many of the rewrites and the reshoots of the film is when Disney and Lucasfilm made many changes and adjustments to the second and third acts of the film, where it's explained that this was mainly done by Disney and Kathleen Kennedy to focus more on the new characters and to create a different tone for Episode 9 that would better fit the general audience. Now, it's explained that many of these changes mostly happened in mid-August, where Disney and Lucasfilm decided to cut Hayden Christensen's scenes as Anakin Skywalker and to only have him appear at the very end of the film as a Force Ghost voice, reaching out to Rey during her battle against Palpatine. This decision was made to focus more on the characters of Rey, Finn, and Poe, rather than the Skywalker family. One of the major scenes that were deleted, that were done by actor Hayden Christensen, was going to involve Anakin's Force Ghost inside of the Prime Jedi Temple, appearing in front of Rey and teaching her a lesson through the ways of the Force, where Anakin would appear in an older design, as if he was in his 70s, telling Rey a story about the ancient Jedi. This sequence was said to also involve Luke Skywalker's Force Ghost appearing next to his father, and the reason behind aging Hayden Christensen was to filter out the strange visuals of the son appearing older than the father. It said that in the sequence, Anakin's Force Ghost would actually rest his hand on R2-D2's head and remember the fine droid that he went on many adventures with in the past. This was described to be a segment in which Anakin would tell Rey about Palpatine and a secret about her lineage and her bloodline and how she is connected to him. This was all changed for Kylo Ren to tell Rey the truth about Palpatine and her bloodline. Where another sequence that was actually said to involve a segment in which Hayden Christensen portrayed Anakin Skywalker in the netherworld of the Force actually involved not only Anakin but other Force Ghosts as well, appearing next to Yoda and Kenobi, where Luke would appear in the background. This is, of course, where Anakin would tell a brief tale about the beyond to both Rey and Kylo Ren while they are able to witness the netherworld of the Force. Lastly, it's explained that one of the vital scenes for Anakin portrayed by Hayden that was also deleted involved a moment in which he deflects a strike of lightning from Palpatine to Ben Solo, where he would deliver a smirk to Sidious before vanishing into thin air. This was also cut since Disney wanted to completely mystify the fans when it came to other Force Ghosts other than Luke and Leia in the movie. So let's go over a couple of parts about this. Now, the one word I can really best describe this decision as is just a train wreck. It really is. When we look at Episode 9, this movie really does determine the future of the franchise and exactly how the fans, how the Star Wars community is going to look at the trilogy in its entirety. And when we look at The Force Awakens, it started off pretty decent. I'm not going to lie. I think it was a very entertaining movie. I think it had a great start. Yes, sure, it had a lot of similarities to Star Wars A New Hope, and Bob Iger even admitted that they were playing it safe because they hadn't done a Star Wars movie in 10 years at that point in time in 2015, ever since 2005's Revenge of the Sith. So of course, they had to play it safe because they didn't know quite sure what to do, and at the very end of The Force Awakens, it really left your mind wondering as to what they could really do with The Last Jedi. Then The Last Jedi came around, and a lot of fans were very much upset with how Rian Johnson handled the entire lore, handled the character of Luke Skywalker. Of course, you have, a percentage of fans that love the movie, which is fine and all, and okay. Everybody has their opinion. But now, moving on to The Rise of Skywalker, it almost seems like it's going to be a mixture of it being a decent film at times, like The Force Awakens, but also having these elements of The Last Jedi that's really going to divide the fans completely in all acts of the movie. So this one big decision, I will say, was a terrible mistake to not actually have Anakin at the forefront, to actually not have Anakin as the main focus of it all. If you think about it, why are they calling this the Skywalker saga if they want to stay away from the Skywalker family? Now, I understand that Ben Solo is a Skywalker by blood, but even they're doing a disservice to Ben Solo in Episode 9 by not allowing him to confront Palpatine and destroy him once and for all, and that Ben Solo dies just like that in a matter of seconds. So I feel that what they're doing here is, of course, they're just trying to steer clear away from the Skywalker family and focus more on Rey. Now, of course, these new movies are Rey's story. I totally understand that. That's 100% clear. But at the same exact time, they're calling it the Skywalker saga of all things, right? And the name of the movie is The Rise of Skywalker, which we now know pertains to Rey taking the Skywalker name and applying it to herself, calling herself Rey Skywalker at the very end of the movie. Now, the thing about this decision that I think is completely unfair to the fans is that there's a lot of fans who grew up with the prequels in the 90s and the early 2000s, and they love the character of Anakin and how Hayden portrayed him. Of course, you got fans out there that completely despised Hayden's performance as Anakin, and I 100% understand that. There are moments in the movies with Hayden Christensen where the dialogue is cringy and it just comes off as very bad. But there are times where Hayden really delivers it and really just knocks it out of the park, and you can really see his potential as an actor. And over the years, he really has kind of just done great pieces of work before he quit his acting career and kind of just said goodbye to Hollywood. The fact that they could have actually given Hayden Christensen a little bit more limelight for the final Star Wars movie in the forms of actual scenes and in the form of an actual Force ghost, as opposed to just having him as a voice, I think really is a train wreck for the third, second, and first act of the movie. Basically how they had these scenes partially filmed or planned out in the script or nearly completed, and then just decided to put it to the wayside through all the major reshoots and kind of just steer clear from all of that. It almost reminds me of what happened with Justice League, where they have different cuts and stuff around those lines. It almost reminds me of that. And go figure, Chris Terrio, he was a writer for Justice League, so it kind of makes sense there as well. So when we look at Episode 9 here, I'm really still hoping for the best. I'm still a Star Wars fan at heart, but from everything that has been going on, it just seems like Disney just doesn't understand Star Wars or doesn't know Star Wars at its heart. Yes, I know that these movies are Rey's story. I understand that. But at the same exact time, it's called the Skywalker saga. If they wanted to make it strictly Rey's story, they could have completely disconnected this trilogy from the originals and just called it, something different, if they really wanted to do that. So I think that at the end of the day, the fact that Anakin is what really started it all, he is the man who became Darth Vader. He is the man who really created conflict in the galaxy. It's the main reason as to why Luke even exists. It's also the main reason as to why Ben Solo exists. So Anakin Skywalker really was the start of it all, and how Palpatine is also back alive, and how that kind of interrupts Anakin's sacrifice in Return of the Jedi. I can 100% understand people's concerns, with Disney and Lucasfilm's decisions and what they're planning to do with this movie. And the last thing I just want to say here is this, is that this movie still has the opportunity to be better than The Last Jedi. To me, The Last Jedi hit rock bottom, and now there's nowhere else to go but up. That's the absolute truth, at least in my own opinion. If you guys like The Last Jedi, that's fine, but that's just my take on things. So, like I say, guys, I would like to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments, everything related to these decisions by Disney and Lucasfilm, and everything related to Kathleen Kennedy. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.